Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. In today's episode we're looking at some interior protection. We're going to get rubbered up. We're going to be fitting the heavy duty cage ready for the canvas any day, but before I do that I wanted to sort of put some protection inside the vehicle because we're going to be sort of trampsing around inside it standing up. And I know it's got the Raptor and that is a very durable product, but obviously you still get mud and footprints and stuff all inside the vehicle, and I wanted to try and stop a bit of that. So I'm going to be looking at putting some rubber mats in. Now I've got a few different ones. I thought it'd be a perfect opportunity just to go over really, I guess, what the difference is between a cheap rubber mat. Is that a good choice because it's affordable, it's a disposable part, or should you go for a more expensive, genuine part? So we're going to look at a few different rubber mats, some interior mats and some Loadspace mats. Now, I was really surprised because you can still buy a genuine tunnel and footwell mat from Land Rover that fits an R380 gearbox in the old vehicle. Now, unlike our other build, when we did the TD5, we actually put Exmoor Trim's acoustic mat set in here. It's the Defeater mat system, and that is genuinely brilliant. But we're going for a simpler look on this, we're going for a cheaper budget, and I figured I didn't really want to do anything with the seat box, so I wanted to keep that in the body colour, but I did want to sort of have some protection inside the footwells and also on the gearbox tunnel, so having one of these made a lot of sense. Now it should just drop straight in. I might have to move the handbrake assembly just to get it tucked over, but we'll see how we get on. It's not right. It's just not right. So because we've got a short shaft 380, I think the gearbox tunnel is a little bit different. This is for a standard 380 because it's got the bulge here. Ours is a little bit different. I think if I just trim some of this top piece, it should slide back a little bit and be okay. So to be honest, I think the interior looks really nice with those, especially the footwells with that matting. A bit unfortunate that we've got a bit of a Frankenstein tunnel on our gearbox, but you know, I've tried to clean it up as best I can. It does fit quite well, just we've got a bit of extra space at the top there, so we might have to either use a leather gaiter and stretch it over that aperture just to cover it up, or we could paint or fill in that with some carpet maybe, or some rubber just to hide it. But pleased with the whole look of it, and yeah, I just think it tidies up everything really nicely, and it should help also keep the noise down a bit. I was not aware of the massive amount of difference there are between floor mats, rubber floor mats, and I just think, you know, there's such a variation in price on all of these mats. What are you really getting for your money? So I just thought I'd do a real quick breakdown. I've got 4 mats here. I've got one genuine Land Rover mat, which I've got here in front of me. I've got an Exmoor Trim mat, and I've got 2 from Britpart, which on initial looks do look exactly the same, but there are some differences, so I think it's worth going through. Now I'll do this slightly differently. Normally I don't put prices on the screen when we do these reviews because you might be watching this 10 years time. So this is live as of July 2024. These are the prices that the mats are currently without tax. It's just to give you an idea of the price difference, because that's really important in this. Now, they're all the same shape. They're all designed for an R380 gearbox. Some can be cut, like this one are trimmed for an LT77, so they're dual purpose, but not all of them. So we'll start with this one. This is one from Land Rover. This is a genuine Land Rover part. Initially, you can see it's a good quality mat. It really is. And there is a lot to the mat that you wouldn't initially see straight away. So the first thing that strikes me is just how deep this trough is. This channel around the outside is really deep, and the idea of that obviously is to trap water and mud, and I just think that is a very important element to a floor mat in a Land Rover, especially a Defender, because they do leak and you do get water in the mats. And what's interesting is as it tapers off towards the front, where this will actually be lifted up in the footwell, it's not as thick because it's just not needed, because obviously water runs down and runs into this trough, so it gets deeper as it goes towards the back of the mat, which is really clever. The other thing I like, it's got a different tread, so it's kind of inversed at the top where it doesn't have to be quite so aggressive, and then you've got this slightly more pronounced tread in the middle where it is more aggressive, and then it tapers off again. So it's not as simple as you might think. When you just look at it, you think, oh, it's just nobody's really put any thought into that. They definitely have put thought into this, but I'm guessing this is probably twice the price of all the other mats. So is it worth it? Well, it's a nicer material, so it's a good flexible mat. You can see there, look, it's nice and thick, it's weighty, and also it's got these ribs on the back which will stop it moving around when it's in the vehicle. So if you haven't got a mat like we have, so it's rubber on, well, that's kind of rubber, it's going to stick better, but this actually is very hard to move, especially when you've got some weight on it. It does actually grip really nicely. So you've got some good clear cut lines here for when you want to shape it for your gearbox tunnel, and even better than that, at the back they've given you a little diagram here of what you trim off for. Basically, you've got a 4-speed V8, you've got County Station Wagon 19110, and you've got all other models. So that's like, you know, how it fits in together. So it's nice that they've given you that bit of information. So I guess this is our benchmark. So I'm impressed. I love the logo. Obviously, I think it's got a nice aesthetic to it, but just the quality of that mat is really nice. How much it is, I don't know at this point. I'm going to put it on the screen now. I can't act surprised because I just don't know at the moment, but I'll cover that at the end. So let's take that one away. So the next mat is from Exmoor Trim, and it's their autograph edition. Now the design of this mat actually is the same on all the next 3 mats, albeit there's a few differences in some of these cutaway areas. So I think it's must be a generic pattern that's out there, that, you know, companies can go to and say, right, I want that mat, and they give them a choice of customization and also different materials. So the Exmoor Trim mat is a lot more rigid than the other ones, so it's not as flexible, but it is holding its place, so that might actually work better for some acoustic deadening. The material, it's a more fibrous material. It's not slippery, it's not smooth or shiny. It's actually like a matte texture, a matte finish on there, so that's probably going to give you more grip. You haven't got that deeper trough around the edge, although there is one, and it is definitely pronounced, so it will collect water. So yeah, I mean, I think I'd give that, if I were rating them out of 10, I'd have to give the Land Rover, the genuine Land Rover mat, a 10 out of 10. I'm afraid it's just, you know, that's what I genuinely think it's worth. The Exmoor Trim one, I think that's probably going to go for a 6.5. It's nice. It's a bit too rigid for my liking, but I do quite like the matte finish rather than the slip and slide shininess of the other ones, which I'll show you now. Now this one is from Britpart, and I'm just going to show you the difference between the Exmoor Trim and this Britpart one, because you can see here, look, if I drop them, that's got some memory to it. So this one flops straight down, this one takes a little bit more time. So this is a lot stiffer, a lot more rigid, and if that's something you want to go for, then by all means. I think it's probably got better acoustic properties to it. This, again, same design, the same look. There's a few little differences in sort of, that's actually got a relief to it. You've still got these trim areas here, but all in all, quite a nice mat. It's quite heavy actually, I quite like that, and it's not super shiny and slick, so it has got a bit of grip to it, which is quite nice. You've got these ridges here again, and you've got this tread plate pattern, so actually if you've got any checker plate on your car, that's going to be working quite well design wise on these 3 mats. It's going to look quite nice. Good edge as well on there. It's going to collect a bit of water, but nowhere near, it's probably half the depth of the genuine Land Rover one. Now I'm going to leave that one there because I'm going to show you the other one from Britpart. Now it's quite interesting because when I picked these out on the website, I thought there'd be some significant differences, but genuinely it's the same mat, albeit a bit thinner. And when I say a bit thinner, it is barely noticeable, but you can certainly feel the difference. So only just. This has got a bit more weight and a bit more rigidity to it. These ribs here are a bit sort of stronger, whereas we get this one, and you know, they're a lot floppier. So I'm guessing number 3 is going to be more expensive than number 4. So as far as marks out of 10 for number 3, I'm going to give that a strong 8, because I think that is a good mat. I do think that's a good mat, and hopefully it's good value as well. And then we move on to Britpart's other mat. Again, don't know the price on this. I don't really, it's very, very slimy, but I think that's the way it's come out of the mould. But you can see when you look at it that between these ridges there's not a lot of meat, so this is nowhere near going to be as durable. So if you've got a lot of heavy traffic, if you're driving in work boots all the time, you're on site and you're really making a mess of your mats, this is probably not the one to go for. So for this one, it's probably going to be a hard pass, to be honest. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. So I think it's pretty obvious. Well, I don't know, we'll find out in a minute. I think it's more likely that you're just going to get what you pay for. It's as simple as that. So at the end of the day, if you're interested, it's always worth looking at the options out there. Again, aesthetics, this looks good. Doesn't perform very well, but it will smarten up your interior. If you want something that's form and function, you need to go to the other end of the spectrum and go for the genuine Land Rover. Now, if you've got to trim them, here's a little tip. If you've ever skinned a deer, doing this on your mats is very similar. You don't use the knife to do the work for you. You literally pull the material. So, sorry to use that analogy, but basically you just want to run your knife in there and you want to pull the material out and it will naturally start to go where. So just work the knife a little bit and then just pull it, because it's actually thinner along that line, so it knows where it wants to split, and you'll get a nice clean skin, mat. Right, there we go, so let's get that in. Now, we're not done, because we're now going to look at two options that are out there for Loadspace mats. Now, we're going to be fitting benches onto the sides here, so I'm not going to be putting any matting on the top here. I just literally want this floor pan to be covered in a nice heavy-duty mat. We've got two to look at. I believe one is from Britpart and the other one's from Exmoor Trim. I've got two mats here that will fit both 90 and 110 rear load spaces, so I'm guessing these aren't going to go all the way through to the front underneath our seats. They're probably going to run short, but if they do, I guess you trim them for a 90. Let's find out. The first thing I need to mention is this one from Exmoor Trim, and we've got this one from Britpart. Now, this one from Exmoor Trim genuinely weighs twice as much. It's an absolute ton weight, so you can tell there's going to be some serious acoustic deadening in that, and also quite a long life. So here's our Britpart mat, and I actually quite like these because I think the design's nice. They're not they're fitted really well. So, you know, a lot of mats will come up short, but this one does definitely seem to be sat nicely in the middle there. You can see there, it's a really nice fit all the way along. And it does just run short at the top, look, on a 110, but that is basically where your bulkhead would be on a 90. So yeah, as far as fit goes, I mean, you can't go far wrong with a rectangle, can you? But, you know, it's got good grip, so it's definitely not a slimy rubber. It has got a really nice feel to it. So I think that is definitely a good solution. It just feels a little bit thin. These are nice and strong, but that's not quite so strong. So let's roll it up and have a look at the Exmoor Trim one. Is it too tight? Oh, it's longer as well. Oh, that's much better. It's too wide, which means I've got to trim it, which means it's going to look untidy. What an unfortunate result that is going to be. Okay, so it is really, it's way too long. That is a long piece. So that is actually going to drop right down over the front. Got to ask yourself why it's so long. I don't like trimming stuff just because rubber is so hard to trim. It really is. So it's not too thick that it won't fit underneath the threshold. The thing I like about it is it's ribbed. So I know we talked about rubber, which, you know, it's all the wrong connotations here, but because it's ribbed, you've only got these little narrow bits which aren't as strong, but you've got loads more raised pieces, which means overall it's going to be a much stronger, more solid piece of rubber. And it just looks much, much cleaner. The thing I'm disappointed about is the fact that it's too wide. That's really annoying me, because I'm going to have to trim it and I'm not going to get a straight line on there. It's going to be really hard to get a straight line on there. So yeah, I think we're at least 8mm too wide. And I know not every Land Rover is the same, but I'd rather have it so I can get it in there flat than have that nasty edge. See, I've already gone wrong. And there. Yeah, 100% look. That is now the right width. And yes, it looks okay, but it's by no means perfect. Nowhere near as nice as the other side that's been cut out of the factory. So I'm surprised. Exmoor Trim are normally so precise with their stuff. There must be a reason, and I'm sure they over offered the material in case you've got wider load space, but who has that? I mean, they're all pretty much a muchness, and I've just taken off, you know, quite a substantial amount there, and it's now perfect. So it's probably worth an email just to let them know. I'm sure they appreciate a bit of feedback, but I want to now see if we've got enough to trim the whole front box, but it looks lovely. So what I've done with my mat is I've actually rolled it all the way back so it's enough to sit underneath the threshold at the back, and we can tuck it underneath when we remove that. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut it straight across the lip, the front edge of my seat box, or the floor pan for the second row seats. And then what I'm going to do is actually going to put strips on the front and then finish it with a piece of angle iron. So it'll either be some black anodized aluminium angle iron or a plastic piece of angle iron, if you like, if you know what I mean, just like the peaked edging trim strip, and I think that'll be a nicer finish rather than have this all bent over where it won't stick down properly because it'll lift. Glue is glue, but unfortunately these have got all sorts of chemicals on them, so they don't stick in the mould, so the glue's not going to stick very well to that. So yeah, I'll get this marked off, I'll get it cut, and then we're good to go. Well guys, I filmed far too much footage for this episode, so I actually covered a load more stuff, but the video was about half an hour long, so I thought you wouldn't want to sit through all that, so I'm going to save it for another day. But you can see there's quite a few elements in the Land Rover that we've added. So we've got the brace bar there, we've got some new mirrors, there's a few other things as well that you might notice as you've watched the episode, but don't worry, I'll be featuring those very shortly. I'm still waiting on this frame set from Exmoor Trim, no word yet, hopefully tomorrow, but next week I'm really hoping we can get that on. But thanks for watching, really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed it. It gives you a bit of an insight now, I hope, to the differences on the rubber mats that are available, and also, you know, if you want to get something for your own 110 or your 90 for the rear load space, that's going to give you an idea of how to do it and what to look out for. So thanks very much for watching, do appreciate it. Do give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll catch you on the next one.